Creating a circuit on Tinkercad can be simple and fun. Start by going to the website tinkercad.com. Once the Tinkercad website has loaded, select the Sign In button and sign in using your Google account. Once you've signed into Tinkercad, select the circuit options on the left side of the screen. Now create a new circuit using the Create New Circuit button. In order to know what components you're going to need to create a circuit, you're going to have to go back to the Google Classroom and click on the assignment for Mr. Circuit Lab 2. A description of what is needed for this particular circuit lab is in the Google Doc, titled Mr. Circuit Lab 2. Another reference you will need from the Google Classroom under the Stream tab is the Mr. Circuit Lab Manual. As I enter the Mr. Circuit Lab Manual, I'll scroll down to page number 10, where Mr. Circuit Lab number 2 begins. Be sure to read through the information that is in the Mr. Circuit Lab number 2, as you will need to answer questions on the Google Doc related to Mr. Circuit Lab number 2. On the second page of Lab number 2, you will see a pictorial of what the circuit looks like when fully assembled. Notice the components that are listed. You'll need an R1 12 ohm resistor. You'll need an L1 lamp. You'll also need a battery and a breadboard. Let's start by bringing those components in first. From the Tinkercad website, I'm going to begin by searching for the components I need. I'll begin by searching for breadboard. As I start to enter the word breadboard, you'll see that options for breadboards appear underneath my search bar. Click on the breadboard small, drag it into your screen, and drop the breadboard in the middle of your screen. You will not need to name this component, as there is only one breadboard in the circuit. The next component I'll bring in will be my resistor. R1 should be a 12 ohm resistor for the Mr. Circuit Lab number 2. As I again begin to search for my component, I type the word resistor, and you'll notice that as I'm typing the word, resistors should show up on underneath my search bar. I'll click on the resistor that comes in default, drop it in the middle of my screen, and then change its value to match the Mr. Circuit Lab number 2. The resistance for the Mr. Circuit Lab number 2 resistor 1 should be 12 ohms. You will notice that the color bands on this resistor now match what should be appropriate for a 12 ohm resistor. Completing the component search, I will then need to search for a lamp or light bulb. I begin by searching for light bulb. Underneath my search bar, you will see a light bulb appears. I want to simply click and drag this light bulb onto my screen and drop it anywhere on the screen near my other components. Lastly, I will need a battery. Begin by starting with the voltage of the battery, 9V, and you'll notice a 9-volt battery shows up underneath my search bar. Click on the 9-volt battery and bring that into the circuit as well. You may need to adjust where your components are on the screen by simply clicking on the component. You can then drag it appropriately to make it fit on your screen. Ideally, as assembling a circuit lab, I would want to see that all of my components are lined up. If it helps, you can zoom into the Mr. Circuit Lab Manual and notice more closely where these components line up in the breadboard. First, let's start with our battery leads. My red battery lead, or positive lead, should be connected to the furthest upper left spot in the breadboard. Back under the Mr. Circuit Lab, I want to move my battery above my breadboard, and I also want to rotate my battery. This is going to allow me to put my terminals facing downward. As it stated in the Mr. Circuit Lab, I want my red terminal to be located in the upper left-hand corner of my breadboard. As you will notice, in Tinkercad, the breadboard has a terminal track. We do not need to use these terminal tracks. So the beginning corner of our breadboard will be J. Start by connecting the red terminal from your battery to the spot on the breadboard labeled 1J. You can also change the colors if this will help you associate more closely the Mr. Circuit Lab manual pictorial with your Tinkercad assembly. Next, you'll notice that the black lead of the battery snap belongs down in the lower right corner. However, it would be best if we were to count the squares across and down in order to assemble. When counting my squares, you should notice the black terminal for the battery is located 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 squares to the right on the breadboard. Back under the Mr. Circuit Lab, I'm going to zoom in and count over 11 squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. This will be the starting point for my negative terminal. You can end the terminal connection on the negative lead of the battery and change the wire to match with the terminal color. I now have my battery in place, ready for my remaining components to be assembled into the breadboard. Back under the Mr. Circuit Lab manual, you will notice that the lamp is located 3 squares up in row number 1. Lamps are universal, so I do not need to worry about terminal color or placement. I start by clicking on terminal 1 of my lamp and assembling it to 1H. Color change is not necessary, but if you feel more comfortable, you may select a color that best appropriately suits the lamp. I'll select red. The second terminal of my lamp, as shown in Mr. Circuit Lab manual, should be in row 1, 2, 3, 4, connected with letter F. Terminal 2 of my lamp belongs in 4F. And I will change this as well to black. Lastly, I need to assemble my resistor, R1. Resistors are also universal, so it does not matter which direction you place the resistor in the board. Connecting the resistor in line with your components is critical. I don't necessarily need to count where the resistor belongs here, as I know it needs to be in line with the lamp terminal and the battery terminal. Going back to Tinkercad, I'm going to drag my resistor over, rotate it 90 degrees, and then begin by assembling the terminal connections in line with the battery and the lamp. Now that my circuit has been fully assembled, what I should notice is that when I simulate the circuit, my light bulb should illuminate. If it does, I have successfully connected my first Tinkercad circuit. Sharing this circuit will allow me to get credit for completing the lab. What I need to do to share the circuit is stop the simulation, click on the share button, then click on invite people, copy the link to my assembled circuit in Tinkercad, and then under the Word document, paste the link under step 3 in the Mr. Circuit Lab number 2 drive. Let's back that up, try that again. Once copied, I then want to paste the link into my Google Drive for Mr. Circuit Lab number 2. Answer the questions that go along with the Mr. Circuit Lab manual. Once I've done this, I can then share my drive with Mr. Young. That concludes the assembly of our first Tinkercad lab. We will be available in the classroom to assist with anybody that may be struggling to find a component or to become familiar with the Mr. Circuit labs in Tinkercad.